So thank you everyone for joining in for this AMS session with Srinivasan Sekar, who is lead consultant at ThoughtWorks. Uh, Huge shout out to Browser Stack, who are our premier sponsor for all our conferences and exclusive sponsor for all our community events. Due to companies like Browser Stack that were able to do so many such events at such a scale for free for all our audiences. About Srinivasan, he's a lead consultant at ThoughtWorks. He has over 12 years of experience. He is a certified Kubernetes and a native cloud native associate. He has contributed to multiple open source projects like Appium, Selenium, Taiko. He has coached a lot of people. We have had the chance to host Srinivasan at a bunch of other events also, and he has always been very knowledgeable about mobile automation in general and in general about testing. So with that, let me call Srinivasan on stage.
Hi everyone. I hope I'm loud and clear.
Yeah, you're loud and clear.
See me as well.
Yeah, we can see you. Can others confirm if they can see Srini? I can see him for sure.
Awesome.
Cool, Rama can see you. A lot of others can see you. Abhishek can see you. Okay, folks. So the format is fairly simple. We have some pre-collected questions on the theme which we have today on mobile app testing in general. I will ask those questions one by one to Srini. But if you have any question, please put those questions on the chat and keep looking at the questions on the Q&A tab and keep upvoting the most popular questions. I will take them as and when possible. It's your session. More questions you ask, more questions I will be able to take with Srini. So Srini, let's get straight to business.
Sure.
My first question is mobile app testing is now one of the most important part of the testing environment in general, testing fraternity in general, because of the range of mobile apps. Even if they are not mobile apps, we're dealing with PWAs typically. So there's a lot of mobile app testing happening around us. What are the challenges which you see in mobile app testing which people face on a day-to-day basis?
Yep. In terms of challenges testing mobile apps, probably first thing comes in mind is the platforms. There are a lot of devices, OS versions, and again these devices varies with respect to market where the app is being put up. Same application on App Store on India will have a diverse set of devices and OS versions to
Correct.
the geography. And again, to make it more complex, we have screen sizes. We have foldables in place, different OS versions, customized OS versions, a lot of fragments. So to ensure device manufacturers coming up with their own user interfaces, which adds more testing challenges as well. Usability and user experience because of variety of resolutions that we have, and which differs with iOS and Android, making it a bit more difficult in terms of ensuring amazing user experience for our users. In general, mobile has its own complexity in terms of security, because we are shipping the application that has to be secure because it's going to sit on their palm at the end, right? And network basically, it's most of the times the application is going to be on motion along with you wherever we go, so it has to go through a lot of different networks and updates, frequent updates. People might be in a different versions. I might be in a different versions for the same app. Someone else might be in a different version for the same app. What is our strategy in terms of ensuring we satisfy everyone, whoever is in different versions? And again, accessibility again. Making sure we we are ensuring that accessible. We are ensuring that it's usable by people in general who has probably disabilities or can complete the particular task in the mobile app that we are shipping. And to add more complexities when it comes to mobile versus web is probably the hardware features. The applications that we ship can make use of device hardware features, for example camera, gyroscope, GPS, accelerometer. If your application has access to these, or if you have to scan a particular QR code, probably uh, the component that we use has to be compatible. So there's a lot in terms of challenges. It's depends upon the context as well, or what
Correct.
kind of functionalities that application has as well.
God. But it's fair. I think mobile comes with a lot of other variables as compared to a simple web application because the amount of variables are not as high in a way. I think the biggest problem still remains is the device fragmentation problem. There are a lot of devices, like you said, and they come with varied form factors. There are tablets, there are foldables, there are now what do you call them? The ones which are like when they open up, they're square shaped, or they're almost like a square shaped, right?
Yes.
So the new category of foldables and then screen sizes and like you said. So how what's I think let's address devices first. What are the best possible ways to handle device fragmentation for mobile app testing?
Sure. I think it is first thing for any application is to understand about customer, who is our target audience, and where are they coming from, and is it? I mean, getting to know about your application and what they, I mean, whom we are shipping it for is the first thing that should be the first step when it comes to any application that we pick for testing. Getting to know your customer solves quite a lot of problems, and then probably by going through this, maybe you should do a market analysis as well, where we are, I mean, understanding about the target market, with probably the popular devices on that market, for user segments. Are they, I mean, when I say getting to know about your user, how are they going to use it, what kind of geography they are in, most of your users are in, are they going to use the application in general? I mean, are they going to sit at home and use it, or are they going to use majority of the times? Depends upon the application as well. If the application is for ticket booking or so, probably you might use it on the flow for showing the QR codes as well, right? Understanding about your customer is the first step. So which helps us to know about people, what they use, I mean, what kind of devices they use, which geography are they from. It makes, I mean, analytics makes life simple on majority of the cases. But if we are going for the, I mean, if we are going live for the first time, that's when market analysis about the geography is really important.
Hmm.
But if we have gone live with analytics integrated, there are tools that could help us to identify commonly used devices and OSs and where the most traffic is coming from. So that helps us to identify what kind of device sets they are using. And again, people go for devices, they just randomly pick devices just because our customers use such devices, right? It's important to categorize the devices as well. So that's when DPIs come into place, like dots per inch in Android. So whether they are coming from hex HDI or ultra large display, what kind of category, or how you could pick the devices. Can I pick the devices only from a uh, particular dots per inch, or can I pick the device from XHDA? All depends upon if we know about our users pretty well. So we have MDPI, we have XHDPI, HDPI, which is basically 160 DPI. People who might have seen the specs of the device might get to know about a lot more about DPIs, right? Dots per inch. So which is related to density scaling factor of a particular device as well. We might, most of the times we know, for example, if we take Samsung S22 Ultra or S23 Ultra, for example, we get to know about it. It has, if you go through the specs, it will have 1440 into 3088 pixels. Through that, we can figure out, if we know about this information, just we can go ahead and figure out where does it falls under. So based on that, we can categorize and pick the devices. In iOS, it's pretty simple. The device
Because the
fragments are,
fragmentation is not as high as
yes,
Android.
yes,
Got it.
yes, Android. But in Android,
Got it.
especially if it is geography like India, we have tons of manufacturers.
Yeah, but that is the first part to this, right? That we identify. Okay, these are the five, or these are the 10, or these are the 100 devices which I want to test. Let's say I am making an app that's for the mass market, which will have, let's say, a marketing to millions, where it will lead to about 100, 120 devices. Correct? Let's say
Yes.
which come into my list. Now, For a app developer, it might not be possible to buy 120 devices. They might not be buying 120 devices, right? So how do we solve for that problems, in that sense? And uh, yeah, that problem for that sense, correct?
Yep, that's where this DPA is coming in place, right? We are not going to, I mean, these 120 devices or 100 devices, for example, will eventually fall under certain resolutions,
Okay,
DPAs, for example. So we can figure out what DPAs are we going to submit. I mean, what DPAs are we going to support, which eventually covers majority of our users. There might be users on foldables. How does your app looks like when you have a foldable? So, in iOS world, it is pretty simple because we get to know the simulators upfront. So you can check the look and feel of your application upfront, even though the app is not yet hit the market. For example, uh, ignore about the dynamic island. Just before dynamic island, we did had a top notch, right? There are a lot of speculations. How is my app going to behave as soon as we have a top notch? Will I be able to see my logo, or not? Just the logo will be hidden, or will the app little bit
got
pushed
it.
downwards? We can get to know all of these in simple. But in terms of Android, I think it is. We may get simulators from certain manufacturers, but not from other manufacturers in common.
Got it. Got it. So a lot of audience questions which has come up for the first go itself, and I'll take one of it, okay, so that we keep a balance between pre-collected and the audience questions. Uh, okay, so this question I'll take, and I'll cover two questions on using this. This is from Betini V from Vizag. For a person starting with mobile app testing after an enormous time spent in web testing, what can be the plan to follow for becoming, let's say, well versed with both manual and automated testing of mobile applications? So the person has come from a web testing background. How can that person become an expert into mobile testing from both manual, functional, and automation testing?
Yeah. So I think it's little easier if we have worked upon on web testing, but irrespective of whether we have knowledge around or we have experience around testing web applications or not, first thing first, be the customer for your product, right? So that solves. Think about yourself as the user of your application. That solves majority of problems. So play around with the applications. Get to know about your users through different channels, like going through the Play Store, because we are shipping the application to the palm of the users, right? I mean, how they use it, nobody knows. Only if we know how, if we have enough information about analytics and crashlytics, for example. So app might crash for a particular user for a particular journey, but may not be crashing for the same journey for a different user in a different device. So understand yourself as a user of the application first, and try to play around with your application quite a lot, and to go a bit deeper, not just through the skin of our application, just go deeper and try to understand how does the architecture look like for your mobile application. Is it powered by several microservices? Is it REST based or is it GraphQL based? What kind of API calls your application is making? As like your web application, you might go through the network, right? So go through, use network inspector tools like MITM proxy and proxy, and understand what kind of API calls your application is making. How are they responding? How long it takes? What kind of animations does your application has? If I disable, how does your application behaves? Think yourself as a user of our application, and then go one level depth, to understand what kind of tests being written by our
Hmm.
developers, and how you could encourage them to write critical cases at the lower level of the pyramid rather than writing everything on the higher layer of the pyramid. Having more tests on the lower level, I mean, basically engage yourself upfront rather than engaging at later, irrespective of web or mobile. That solves a lot of problems. You can test everything very early in the cycle rather than testing late in the cycle on UI. It's very much essential to get to know how does internals of your application works, what kind of caching your mobile apps uses,
Got it.
what
Got
kind
it.
of database it uses, etc.
Understood. Uh, that's about understanding the mobile app in general. Let's say somebody is also looking for the resources which they can go to
Yeah.
start learning mobile. So, can you recommend some resources, some books, to somebody who can, let's say, they can go and possibly learn?
Honestly, it's through experience. You
Yeah,
experience a product. I have
yeah,
never learned, gone through a book that says this is how you test a mobile application.
yeah.
So testing in general is more about experiencing the product,
Correct. More of exploration.
more about exploration.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Understood. I think my question is the next question. We discussed about the fragmentation part, right? Uh, which is which we discussed. Now, my next question is about the uh, this thing. Sorry, just hold on. Got it. So, how do we again like hardware again is a challenge for that matter. Like we can solve these screen resolution issues through DPIs. Example for that matter. Let's say my app now uses GPS as one of the most important hardware integration. Let's say I'm making a ride sharing app like an Ola or an Uber, which
Sure.
will interact very closely with the GPS function. Or let's say I'm making a social networking app, which will interact very closely with the camera function. Now, camera sensors in each uh, mobile manufacturer or mobile phone would be different. Same with GPS. Same with Bluetooth, for that matter. So, how do we handle the device fragmentation at a hardware level?
Yeah. So one thing to understand is the tech stack as well. What tech stack that we are using? Are we going to use any native tech stack, or are we going to use React or Flutter? Even before we get to know about the device, what component are we using for accessing this camera feature? So how have they battle tested? For example, people just go ahead and use React Native camera as a component that is available in open source. Okay, I go ahead and use it. Probably that may not work on certain devices. There are open issues on that, but people might not just look out for the issues in general, right? So if you have hardware features and if you are using native tech stack, which is quite easier, but in terms of React and Flutter, you will have a lot of components available in market that might have not been battle tested across different OS, different firmwares, different conditions of the devices or settings of the devices. So it is important to understand how does these gets input. For example, taking camera, right? It might work well on certain device firmware. Well, let's say OnePlus. It may not work well on Huawei because of certain restrictions on Huawei in terms of the firmware itself. It's pretty easier on iOS compared to Android, but Android, due to its firmware, it's difficult to understand whether it will work on all the aspects. So get to know about it upfront. Try to test as much device firmwares as possible. At least one firmware on each device. Uh, Probably, if you have got a chance of it, that's when cloud based testing or probably crowdsource as well. Try to test across multiple users that you might have within the team, right? Test in as many devices as possible. That helps. And when it comes to Bluetooth also has different ranges. So testing across different ranges can be also emulated. There are a lot of devices to interact and reduce that range, play around with the, I mean, a lot of apps to mark locations, for example. So you can mark the location. If you have emulators, you can mark the location of your emulator then and there in the emulator settings itself. You don't need to have it tested on real device to start with. It can be started in emulator and then gone for real devices across different users.
Got it. Understood. Understood. There are a lot of audience questions which are coming. I will take them now. Uh, and this is again related to my question also. So now we touched about tech stack in general, and so how important is the tech stack in selecting the tool to test a mobile application? That is one. And then this is Rama's question. I think it is important, but what are the parameters to choose an automation tool? And which is the most widely used tool in market for testing mobile applications? So these are two questions. How important is tech stack? And how do we choose a tool to test mobile applications? And which are the popular tools? Three questions.
Sure. So I'll go on the same stream. So when people ask popular tech stacks and the tools associated with it, most of us have it in mind, the UA tests.
Correct.
Probably we leave everything below UI test. So it is equally important to have or figure out what kind of tech stack our developers are using, what kind of tech stack are they using for mocking, what the tech stack are they using for writing unit tests, what kind of tech stack are they using for writing tools they're using for writing integration tests. Can I inference something from there, or can I suggest something to them as well on that front? To start with, if it is native, there are a lot of options available, right? Unit test can be written via UI automated tool. Unit test can be written via Espresso can help in writing unit integration, and even the UI test and tip of the layer of pyramid as well. In case of React or any other Flutter, probably you can use Flutter's own integration driver for writing integration tests. But for React, probably most of the times I've seen React testing library, one of the wonderful library that I have seen for writing well-written integration tests for components, and amazing library for mocking in front end is MSW, which is mock service worker, which helps us to mock any external API calls that your application is mocking. And this lot of these scenarios can be tested in the lower layer of the pyramid. So people try to push most of the times and try to push most of your tests on the lower layer of pyramid, especially in mobile world. These are the tools in the lower layer of pyramid, and again the tip of pyramid user interface. Probably you can use XUI tests, Espresso, wonderful for native apps. And if it's a hybrid application, probably Appium. There were detox as well for revolving for quite a lot of times in the React well, but Appium has been doing wonderful job. I've been a contributor to Appium for
Yeah.
almost 8 to 9 years now, and in terms of coping up with versions, features, supporting it, the community is amazing
Correct.
to be honest. I started as a user for APM, and now being a member and active contributor. So amazing is Appium. There is Mastro, which
Yeah.
is getting good traction now, but I'm not a strong supporter of Mastro because of the uh, you can't write complex tests in YAML. YAML is not the one that is supposed to write a test, to be honest. That's how it started. Master Studio seems to be good for beginners, but Appium is amazing. It's might
Got
stable and has a good uh, history and community. So,
got understood. That's a lot of tools, and I think uh, we all of us are now a little bit into tool shopping in general, right? We should know a lot of tools, at least their names and then their knowledge, right? I think people have a lot of that in that respect. Again, this might look like a basic question, but I'm assuming a lot of other members might also have this question. Uh, so in web, we can use dev tools to get more information about a bug. So what's the way to get a logs in the mobile app? So I'm trying to get questions for all kind of audience. So in that sense, yeah,
so the moment we hear about dev tools, right, the first thing that comes to our mind is Lighthouse, one of the amazing tool from Google, right? The developer tools in web helps us to do a lot of things. One is getting the logs, of course, console logs, and same way for logging in Android, you can extract the log any moment in time, be it real device or emulators, through ADB shell commands, basic ADB shell commands. The logcat of device can be extracted through the ADB logcat commands. And I did return article about different ADB shell commands. Probably I will try to post it here. In terms of iOS, you can there are a lot of tools available in market to get or extract the iDevice logger. Uh, Likewise, there are a lot of tools in market that you can use to extract. And if you are using cloud based devices, even or most of the cloud devices where you have simple capabilities or settings to extract the logs. Again, logs are a crucial source to understand what information are we logging. That too on a mobile device. If you are logging any sensitive information, that needs to be scanned across as well. That is for logging. In terms of networks, right? Where in network tab of web developer tools, you can go through the list of endpoints that your app is accessing. Web application is accessing. Same way, you can do Charles proxy, which is paid one. I prefer a lot of MITM proxy. So MITM proxy is wonderful, and you can even mock your API calls or API responses. You can slow down your API responses. We even released a plugin recently about this proxy. I mean, basically MITM proxy plugin for Appium. So try to do around that. And in terms of developer tools, there is a lot in developer tools apart from logging, networking. We also have performance, right? So in terms of performance, Lighthouse is wonderful,
Hmm.
but Lighthouse is basic. Honestly, there is page insights in web application. I mean, for web application, same way, we have something. The recent tools that I have come across is called the SoloX, which is amazing. That gives you amazing details about CPU when you are accessing the application. What is your CPU information? How does the frames per second looks like? What is
Hmm.
the startup time of your application? So
Hmm.
SoloX is wonderful. It's also open source. There's another tool called I forgot the name. I'll try to post it, which is called Lighthouse for mobile, which is also open source, but the support for iOS is not so extensible compared to SoloX. So if it is a native application, there are a lot of there are a lot of enhancements done in recent IDEs. So just use Jetpack Compose for giving. It will help you to get startup time, frames per second, CPU, memory, quite a lot of info.
Got it. That's a lot of things in general, and I think performance is one of the most important parts. I remember I used to work for a company called MediaTek before, which was into semiconductors, and there we used to decide the chip. We used to design the chipsets where these phones will be made eventually of. So for us, the problem was of app fragmentation, because how do we ensure that when somebody plays a PUBG on our phone, then what's the kind of performance we see? What's vis-a-vis the battery performance, vis-a-vis the heat performance? So a lot of in-house tools were developed at that point of time, and
Yes.
then we could figure out certain solutions
There
there.
are two tools I recently liked a lot. One is SoloX, the
So
another one
let's
that I
what's how do we spell Solux?
SOLOX.
X. Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
it's again an open source tool. I will try to post the link for it.
I'm trying to find
Another
this
one
one.
is called Flashlight, so which is
Okay.
also really good. They both have around 900, 800 stars.
Okay. Oh,
Uh,
this is a GitHub repository, is it? Got it.
yes, yes,
Got it.
I'll try to put
No,
the links
no,
as well.
I got the link. I'll just share this
Flashlight, it is from BAMLab. It is
one.
also
Okay.
really good, but their iOS support is not so great. But SolarX is amazing. I've tried to use it for last few weeks,
Hmm.
and I've used it for one of the talk recently for when I was speaking about mobile performance in
Hmm.
Athens meetup.
Hmm.
So SolarX is amazing.
Got it. There are some other interesting questions which have come in. Okay, I think this again might be a legacy question, but still worth discussing. This is from Shanmuga, who's a SDET at Trimble, Chennai. Is there a way to handle image comparison and Appium universally for different resolutions on Android? So that is to eliminate the usage of multiple source images or multiple golden samples based on different resolutions.
Yeah. I remember similar question that arose in internal ThoughtWorks QA community chat just recently. So I'm not a big fan of image comparison, especially on mobile, because we have lot of DPIs, lot of resolutions, lot of devices as well. So things vary abruptly. So are we going to add the overhead on top of us by doing a pixel-based comparison? So pixel-based comparisons, if you are doing it with, I remember 7 years back, me and Sai have created a tool using I forget the name of it, Knuckle, which was done by Rajdeep on Ruby. Then me and Sai have done it in Java for image-based comparison. But my experience isn't that great when we do a pixel comparison. A lot of false positives you need to take care of. So this way, ApplyTools has done an amazing job by introducing AI on their selling point, and also the solution is amazing. So if you're doing a manual pixel comparisons using tools, I wouldn't suggest that. It's a lot of
I,
overhead. You
yeah,
have to
that's
keep
why
changing
when I read
things.
the question, I think it's such a legacy problem
Yes.
with of pixel comparison that when, like you rightly said, it gives so many false positives that you just have to start put a lot of effort debugging the false
Yes.
positives.
A lot of
A
maintenance overhead.
lot of maintenance overheads also because of the images keep changing or the golden samples keep changing, and like you said, resolutions is a problem. Correct. Got it. This was done. Yeah, this is again. I think this question you would like. This is from Abhishek, who's a QA engineer at Nirva Bangalore. Uh, he's creating a test framework to test the mobile app of our company mainly for regression purpose. The main challenge he's facing using APM is sometimes it is unable to identify some of the elements as the app is a React Native app. So how does he solve for this challenge? And he is recommending should he switch to Detox?
Again, this is a legacy problem with React Native, and this problem differs or changes with React Native versions as well. Things might work amazingly fine. You think all of a sudden everything is stable, but the moment your developers are upgrading your React Native, things might work fine on Android or and then start failing on iOS. You will be able to identify the element on Android but not on iOS or vice versa. These things happens very frequently on React Native based on my experience working in React Native for almost 7 or 8 years now, right? So there are two main things. One is called accessible. That's the label that we use to in React Native component. If you're using, if you own the component, it is amazing. I mean, it is easy. You just sit along with your developer and make sure that the accessible, component is available, and it is also true or false depends upon the operating system. There is also a wonderful talk from Wim Celes on the first Appium conference. You can go through that as well. That talks about this how you could handle it, and adding test IDs is also an important factor when it comes to React Native. So sit along with your developer and see if you could add test IDs. And another common problem when we add test IDs, you might see parent but you may not see child elements basically. So making sure your parent is accessible false will definitely lead you into a space where you will have you will be able to inspect everything that is how inspect everything that is below the parent, which is the child elements. That's one. And as things grow, there are more screens. You will see the depth of the DOM keeps on increasing. So there is also a wonderful capability which Mykola from Appium member has introduced to increase the depth when you are inspecting it through Appium. So there's not a problem with Appium. Even if you go to Detox, you might encounter the same problem or probably a bigger problem than this. Again, compatibility factor is another problem when you go to Detox. React Native, then you have to stick to another version of Detox, right? So that's another problem. You have to do a lot of changes with respect to Detox as well. If you are jumping React Native versions, I mean basically upgrading React Native versions. If your developers are upgrading the React Native versions, all your test is going to be failing even in Detox, and it may bring up a lot of more problems if you're going for Detox. Based on my experience again, working in Detox and also on React.
Got it. Thank you for this insightful answer, Srini. My next question is like we discussed about. about that the developers if they change a React Native version and then you have to do a lot of changes. So how does mobile app testing differ from web app testing when it comes to frequent changes? So is there a difference? If yes, what's the difference? And how do we tackle those differences?
Again, it is contextual. If you are using a native tech stack, it's easier. If you're building our application using Kotlin, or if you're building our application in Swift, it's going to be pretty easy. You can add your test IDs then and there, and it's going to be pretty smooth. But given the growth of React Native and Flutter recently, that's where the complexity comes in. People just bluntly go ahead and build on top of existing components, which is open source. Sometimes people don't even see the license, whether it is MIT or is it AGPL or GPL, nothing. They just go and check, okay, I have a component, I am going to use that for my camera hardware feature. That's it. And it might break things. So it is important to understand what component from where it comes from, and then taking a decision will be really helpful on these fronts.
Got it. Got it. Makes sense. Again, similar question, but on a different. I'm trying to understand different variables here and see how they differ from web and mobile app. So
Sure.
let's say third-party integrations. Let's say
Hmm.
payment gateways, or let's say you're integrating with a audio API or something like that. There are third-party integrations which are happening around. You're trying to do a filter API, things like that. So how does third-party integrations differ between web and mobile app? And again, what's the difference in testing third-party integrations across web and mobile applications?
Yep, I would say there are two kinds of integrations here. One is straightforward API integration.
Hmm,
Probably the next one that brings the complexity is SDK integration.
correct,
So someone who is giving me an SDK for a certain features and I'm integrating and bundling it within my app,
correct,
which may not be the case on mostly may not be the case on web. So doesn't mean web can also we can't have any integrations with third party where we don't have a source code of about that right now. External source code can still come and sit. Main difference in terms of API integrations, it's quite similar. However, your web application is making an API call, it's going to be quite same. Instead, it is just React. It is going to be React Native here, which is going to make the call, but it is easier to visualize there. Just to open the dev tools, it is amazing, you just see everything there. Here you have to have your developer setup and see if you have a React developer tool at least install, if you are working closely with your developer. And if you are just away from them, I would say work closely with your developer. If you have a chance to work closely with your developer, make sure you have the dev setup in your local as well, first thing. Next, otherwise use MITM proxy to inspect what kind of API tool. Again, to make sure MITM proxy is working, your app shouldn't be SSL pinned. So that's another complexity that comes there when it comes to mobile. Only, I mean, you can inspect the calls only if your application is not SSL pinned. So
correct.
make sure you have an option to generate such kind of bills also in your pipelines. That's another one. If it is SDK integration, that's where complexity comes in. So I currently work on a mobile app, which is in a preventive healthcare domain on Singapore, which has both these kinds of integrations. One is API integration, which is completely third party, where you can go ahead and mock those third party APIs because we have a well established contract, or you just ask for the open API spec and try to mock those. That's easier one. In terms of SDK, right? We have Bluetooth SDK. We have camera. For that, we have. I mean, we also have tracker integration on the app that I am currently working on. Trackers, when I say, is the smartwatches basically that tracks your sleep, steps, and other activities. So these brings in a lot of complexities. You can mock basically quite a few things on your higher layer of permit, but you can mock quite a few things on the lower layer of permit. So get along with your developer and understand how they are mocking that particular library and see. And there could be contracts even between SDKs. Over the air firmware updates can also have an impact in terms of contract. So sit along with your developers and see how it can be mocked in your unit tests. That helps you to push lot of UI tests into your lower layer of permit.
Those are great insights coming in. I think people who are attending this must be noting this down because you have such deep expertise in mobile app testing. Typically, that these are not to be find elsewhere in general. Um, okay, this is a question from Rama again. Let's refresh the votes. Just wait. Okay, this is a question from Yogesh. This is based on APM open source experience. How can we write or develop a custom plugin for APM 2.0?
Again, I think it's been 2 years. The Appium's latest 2.x is out, and since in beta we have been in a plugin based architecture for almost around 4 years now, since 2020. Plugin evolution also has happened a lot. I mean, the way how we write plugin also has evoluted a lot. So myself and Sai, who has co-authored quite a lot of plugins, probably 5 or 6 plugins. We also have a template in Appium Test Distribution organization, GitHub organization, for creating a plugin. And there is also a wonderful step-by-step points written by Jonathan Lips, our chief architect, on how one can create a plugin, what has to be looked out for. So that's the starting point. Probably if you wanted to just plug in your code and by creating a plugin from the template that we already have, that's also another place that you can look into and see how you could create a plugin. We also have myself and Sai has given a talk as well on multiple conferences. Maybe I can try to send the link for it as well here. Yep, I think I got a link. I'll try to send it in the chat for the plugin template that I was talking about. You can pick it up from there. And in terms of performance, I remember I was talking about flashlight. I will just leave a link for it as well. And take a
This
look.
helps. This helps. Got it. Now, we discussed about emulators. We touched about device forms. We didn't name anyone, which is okay. Uh, but what are the considerations to keep in mind when we're testing mobile apps on cloud or virtual devices, which could be emulators or forms? Because we have to do it.
Yes.
There is no hiding away from this fact. We have to do this. So, what are the considerations which one should keep, and what limitations can occur, and how do we solve for the limitations if you have to solve for those limitations?
Sure. I think in terms of emulators and real devices to start with, and then to go ahead, we can go ahead with private or public clouds. Or do I need to have? I have a cloud now. I mean, I have devices on cloud. Do I need to have devices on hand as well, right? So first thing first, we need to have a mix of both. That gives us a picture, irrespective of whether you have devices on cloud or you have emulators on your MacBook or Windows. So we need to have a mix of both uh, emulators and simulators plus real device. Things may not work, things may work particularly smooth on emulator, but may not work at all on real devices, especially when you have third party integrations, as Ashutosh was saying about SDKs and APIs, right? And the SDKs might support ARM-based emulator, but your device may not support an ARM-based, or the SDK may not support your device, which is in a different architecture completely, not ARM-based in that case. So there will be compatibility issues. So it is better to have both, and having a test of non-hardware related features, probably on emulators and simulators, and having these hardware related cases mostly tested on real devices will be really helpful. And picking up the cloud, right? That's also another probably there are a lot of vendors now available in market. So when you're picking up the cloud, figure out how what kind of geography that you are testing, or do they have data centers near you, so to avoid latency, and do they have devices according to your geography on the a data center that you are near to, that's also another case. And what is the device cleanup process? I remember, unfortunately, the team has to send someone during the mid of pandemic in Italy to office just to restart Mac Mini. So it's so crucial. We don't want to send them, but unfortunately, he has gone just to restart Mac Mini. So since then, the first thing they did is acquire. I mean, going ahead and acquiring devices on the cloud. So to onboard them on cloud, I had to work with the partner and also work with the device vendor. So cleanup process are different for private cloud and public cloud. So what you are leaving, what kind of architecture from security front they have is also important. People doesn't consider about architect and security front, but if you are in a banking or fintech or
Yeah,
insurance domain, that comes first. So, understanding their cleanup process, how they clean up the device on public and private cloud, what kind of ISO guidelines they followed for security perspective for private and public clouds, all of those are really important.
got it. Interesting. We're about time. I've few aspects to touch, which I'll touch quickly now. Let's touch the aspects of let's just these three in sequence in crisp. Okay, one is how do we ensure how do we test for accessibility in mobile apps? Then usability and security. Three very important parts of mobile applications because mobile is now very common and it's very vulnerable to uh, unsecure attacks also.
Yes. Maybe let's start with accessibility, which is a wide umbrella. And in case of accessibility, there are a lot of devices available I mean, lot of tools available for us to test. But having the people on the team is the really wonderful thing to do, right? Having the right set of people who has disabilities on the part as part of your team for making sure that the application is inclusive, not exclusive. That helps. Tools are there in the market. Voiceover can be there in the application. Voiceover can be there in the device as well, but that doesn't solve all of those. So it's good to have people. I still remember 11 years back when I was working for uh, Target. They were sued for not following accessibility guidelines. So they brought in people to the team who could help them at least go through or cross the minimum criteria of A or A plus, or I mean AW or AAA, or the minimum criteria to get through the gate. So it's one, voiceover can help. There's few tools that could help you out in terms of understanding some of the basic things, but there is a lot more to it in terms of usability, user experience. All of those are also important in terms of um, the cross-functional aspects in mobile. So having a proper usability study will also help you in terms of improving your user experience of our app. So on that front, in terms of ensuring your effectiveness on usability, A/B testing is another one that comes straight in my mind. So test early and often, and having appropriate usability testing methodologies like A/B testing or Scott sorting or eye tracking. It can be either remote or in person, moderated, unmoderated. Having these uh, methodologies will enforce you to understand how your application is being used. As I said, understanding your users and analyzing. Open for feedback. First thing first is again open for feedback. So look out for feedback from Crashlytics. Look out for feedback from App Store reviews. Look out for feedback from Twitter handles. Look out for feedback from Facebook groups, right? Once you hit the market to the public, you should look out for feedback from all of these and ensure that there is a proper process and prioritization in your backlog to ensure you listen to the people's feedback and giving it back. I worked on applications where we integrate analytics, but nobody goes and looks into analytics. So look out for analytics to understand uh, you built a feature, how are they using it. are they experiencing any drops on a particular screen, then it's our responsibility to go ahead and figure out why is there a drop. Okay, coming back to security, right? So at least have some basic security tests. In terms of security, I would say probably insecure logging is the first thing that comes in my mind. Insecure URLs used in your mobile app and sensitive data in application cache, not in the server cache. I'm not talking about the microservices logs. I'm talking about the app cache. So having some security informations logged on application cache will it's also make your app vulnerable. If your app becomes vulnerable, then that will be another problem. Then make sure, as I said, SSL pin application is SSL pin before you ship to the market, and insecure data storage, dangerous app permissions. We might ask for permissions which is unnecessary. Most of the times it will be usually flagged out by stores or store guidelines, but sometimes they might also miss. So we don't need to wait for them, but you should revise all your permissions. What kind of permissions? If you take just location permissions, right? I remember going through three different types of locations permission: fine grained, coarse, and there's one more, I forget that. So, what kind of permissions for location that you wanted your application users to give that for, right? So, having fine grained access control as well, and there are certain versions that your platform itself will declare as vulnerable versions. Like for example, if you take Android 8, I mean anything below Android 8 is vulnerable. Do you want to support users on those all those vulnerable versions? I think you should ask this question yourself and see how much of users you have on each of these Android versions, and make sure you revise your strategy and study about your users, and see from a security point of view as well, and make sure how do you force upgrade your users to the latest versions as well. Sometimes the old version might be vulnerable. Yeah. Some of the basic things before you get into in depth about BAPT, pen testing, so on so.
Got it. So I'll take the last question, which is quite a generic question, but I think a lot of people have it in general. Is if you can help with the roadmap to start learning automation testing. It's quite generic. It's not related to mobile apps or in that respect.
So people just go forward for tools. So I would just go forward for. Tools are something that is really easy to learn,
Correct. Correct.
but programming is something that is difficult to learn. Writing the clean code is something very difficult to learn, right? So having a understanding about design patterns, solid principles, so having a good understanding or writing about uh, better code, doesn't matter whether it's a dev code base or test code base. So if you have good understanding about your programming language and the way or style of your writing or building a framework, starting on any tools is going to be easy, right? That's Appium. Then if you have experience on Selenium, wherever, writing an Appium test is not going to be a rocket science for anybody. So you can just go through any course, then you can just go through any documentation that's is here. Complexity comes in when it comes to challenges in terms of element identification, challenges in terms of different gestures, handling different gestures, animations. I think these are things that you can learn, and a lot of problems are already solved. Look out for the problems that are already solved rather than reinventing the wheel or reinventing and rewriting a solution yourself until unless required. Right. So start with the programming language and make sure you are comfortable enough to switch to different programming language
Yeah,
as well.
that's important. I think because the next logical question which comes is which one would I pick up first, Java or Python or C Sharp
Yeah, that's
or
another thing.
Scala or but our recommendation is always pick any one first and then have that openness and adaptability to switch to different programming
Yes,
languages.
make your fundamentals very strong.
Yeah,
Then
fundamentally strong.
you can switch to languages. That should be easier for you.
Got it, got it. With that, once more, your knowledge on mobile app testing is very detailed, and I hope folks found it a lot more useful. We covered a lot of aspects from basics to integration to app fragmentation to usability, accessibility, security, and then which tools to pick, and hardware fragmentation. We covered a decent breadth in the last 1 hour, and you were kind enough to answer all those questions, weird or basic, or whatever they were, with patience. And thank you to everyone for.
Thank you
And
so much for the opportunity as well. I think it's wonderful to be associated with Test Drive after a long time.
yeah,
Looking forward for more sessions and
sure,
looking
sure,
forward
sure,
for more learnings from others as well. And thank you
sure,
so much for
sure.
everyone turning up and listening to me. And thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to share my learnings.
Yeah. Thank you, Srini, and thank you everyone. I'll see
Thank you.
you soon in the next sessions. Thank you.